It's Froogle, and here we are with the Flight 1 Super King Air B200. Now, I got this aircraft sent to me by Flight 1 in October of last year, and I meant to do the video of this a lot sooner than now. The reason it's taken so long is that this aircraft is full of surprises. When I initially got this, I went through the manuals, figured out how to operate the aircraft, flew a few circuits, recorded the video, and thought, I'm done! I actually did a live stream at that point as well, and then noticed comments from some of the people at Flight 1 on their Facebook page saying, what the hell? Froogle didn't read the manual. Well, I actually did read the manual, but here's the thing. Their manual is very, very good. And it's kind of split 50-50 between a systems description and also some narrative on how to operate the aircraft. But it's not really, what's the word? It's not really focused on how to fly the aircraft. Now, luckily, there's a guy in the community called Kurt Yoda Kaubfleisch, and I'm going to link him and his tutorial in the description of this video. He wrote an open source public domain tutorial that anybody can download, which is very much in the same vein as a PMDG tutorial for PMDG's aircraft. So it really explains how to operate this aircraft correctly on a flight, so a proper flight. So here we are at Sitka, which is Papa Alpha Sierra India. And the idea of this fantasy in Kurt's documentation is that we're going to fly from here up to Papa Alpha Foxtrot Alpha, but along the way, since we're a med flight, we're going to get diverted and end up landing in Juneau. So that's the flight we're going to do. Now, I could have done a little bit more work and done a whole flight plan myself, but Kurt's tutorial is actually excellent and walks you through many aspects, not only of this aircraft and how to fly it, but also of the incredibly complex systems within this aircraft. In many respects, this is actually a study aircraft. It has a full G1000 avionics suite inside, a very complex GPS system, very complex avionics. It takes a lot of time to learn how to master this, and the aircraft itself actually represents a really good stepping stone from, if you like, single engine or standard twins up to flying jets. The same principles that you would use to fly, say, a 737 or an Airbus actually apply to route planning and flying this on autoflight anyway. So we're going to follow Kurt's tutorial, much as I did when I first started doing videos on the PMDG series of aircraft following their tutorials, because his tutorial is quite simply excellent. The aircraft as a whole, as you can see, is really well modeled. It's really beautiful to look at. Tons of detail on here. We hate to say it in the magazine a lot, but every single nut and rivet is modeled as it should be. The attention to detail is evident actually if you go behind the wing here and start looking at the landing gear. You can see hydraulic lines coming down. They are accurately modeled with the right colors, the right textures. Whoops, I went a little bit too close there. Colors, textures, even down to the colors of the bolts and the texturing on this cable here. Amazing level of detail. Really is a beautiful aircraft, and it's a lot of fun to fly, even if you fly manually as opposed to automated, as we're going to do today. Here's the cockpit. Now, I actually originally recorded this video as well, and I tried to do it in dramatic lighting, but thanks a lot, YouTube. YouTube screwed up my video, so this is a rehash of that. Few tips before we get started, though. I use FSU IPC with my Cytec throttle and yoke, and this aircraft is not too keen on FSU IPC for the throttles. So what I actually have here for my throttles is they are mapped in FSX's own controls. The rest of my controls here are actually mapped in FSU IPC. So just be aware of that. I know some of the PMDG aircraft have that issue as well. For example, the 777. I tend to map the 777's throttle controls outside of FSU IPC, and then do the rest in FSU IPC. So that's how that's mapped up. Quick look around the cockpit here. Amazing level of detail, as you would expect from all the build-up I just gave this. We have multiple Garmin displays here. There's the G1000 right there, the autoflight system up above it. Amazing level of detail on this G1000. As you're going to see, a lot of the tutorial is really focused on managing this system. Everything works on all of these displays. All these soft keys work. Over here on this system as well, you're going to see as we work through this, tons and tons of depth in the electronic systems behind here. Now, starting this aircraft is a little funky and a little odd. I actually have Kurt's tutorial here, and it kind of intersperses the checklist from Flight 1's own documentation with his tutorial. So we're going to work through those on paper. That's the rustling sound you hear. Flight 1 actually are keen to point out as well, if you have actual original B200 checklists, they don't really apply to this aircraft. This is a Super King Air, and the engines have been modified. They're using the Black Hawk package, which makes them a little bit different to the standard engines in a standard B200. So starting this and running this and flying this are actually a little bit different to standard checklists, which is why we work from the Flight 1 checklist, or in this case, from Kurt's amazing tutorial. So I've actually set up some easy dock views to make this a little bit easier. We're going to whiz around all these views right now and see how they all work. So the first step is to make sure the brakes are set. We'll go down here for that and make sure the parking brake is actually on, which it is. We can see the red text from FSX at the bottom. Switches now all need to be off. So let's go through these panel by panel. These switches are all off. These guards being open mean the firewall shut-off valves are closed. So they are all off. You can get rid of the yoke by clicking on the... what would you call that? The yoke mount. Let's go through here. Everything here is off. We can click on this master switch guard and push everything down and off there. All these switches are off. You can see already lots of switches here for lights and even more switches for ice protection. This aircraft has perhaps more ice protection than I've ever seen in any other aircraft. It's pretty crazy. Prop sync is all off. Going over here then. These are all off. The furnace for making coffee. Lights are all off. Cabin temp mode is all off. Everything is all off there. Over this side, normal on the mic and the oxygen mask switch. Down here, fuel cutoff is off. Rudder boost is off. Looks like we're good to go. So brakes are set. Switches are off. Landing gear switch handle should be down, which it is. The power levers, now they're power levers, not thrust levers. This is a turboprop, much like a Dash 8. So you don't have throttle levers, you have power levers. So they are idle. The prop controls now need to go fully forward. I've got a little bit of a twitch there going on, I'm not sure why. Condition levers, these two on the right, both need to be on cutoff. Cabin signs, fasten seatbelt and no smoking. This is a passenger aircraft, and I'll show you that in 1 second. That needs to be on. The cabin temp mode needs to be off, which it is. The vent blower needs to be auto, which is all the way down. The aft blower here also needs to be off, which it is. Electric heat needs to be off, which you can see here it is also. Now oxygen supply pressure, we're going to check these and also make sure that the supply is turned on. There are two handles at the top here. We're going to move the right one, pull that out, and then we can whiz over to the right hand side of the cockpit and check down here that everything is looking good. You can see oxygen supply pressure is looking really quite healthy, so we're good to go. Fuel firewall valves are closed. Great. Now we'll start running through system checks for starting this up. So standby pumps, we're going to turn these on. And you should hear them. Left and right. There is 3D positional sound in this aircraft, which is fantastic. Battery switch, we'll now put that on. That's this one down here. Now I am using my Cytec switch panel, so some of these switches I'm going to be doing on my panel. Some of them I'll do with the mouse. Initially I'll use the mouse here so you can see. So that goes on. Now what we're looking at, as I said, I have views set up. I have a startup view, which is this one, which lets me see all of these important switches as well as the annunciation lights over here. So what we're looking for now with the battery switch on is that the fuel pressure annunciators, this one and this one, are on, and they are. So what we're going to do now is open the fuel firewall valves, and we should see those annunciators go off. The way we do that is close the guards. There they go. They both went off, so now we can turn the standby pumps off. And the lights come back on. Now we'll try crossfeed. Here's the crossfeed flow switch here. That's difficult to say. We'll alternately switch that to left and right and look for the annunciators to go on and off. So left, they come on, off, and right, sorry, left they go off. Right, they are also off, and in the center, they are back on. So crossfeed is now off. Auxiliary transfer switches, that would be this one and this one, are both on auto. No transfer lights. We will press to test these, make sure the lights come on, which they do. Fuel quantity is the same in both tanks. We're pretty much running full today. DC load and voltmeters, they are on the overhead. We'll go and press to test those. Here, yep, and yep. We're all good to go there. Storm warning test. And this is a weird one. It's over here on the right hand side. We'll hold this in the test position, and it's going to be tricky to see the lights, but we'll hold it in the test position, look at lights, and then listen for the audible warning. Good, lots of flashing lights. We'll cancel the cautions, and we heard the audible warning, so that's good. Fire detectors and fire extinguishers. Now this is kind of strange. I'm actually going to test this. We're not going to have a fire today, but that's down here. There is a switch that you go through various left and right test positions, and it's pretty complex. We're not going to bother with that. Annunciator lights, we will test those. All the lights are on, no bulbs are out, we're good to go. Rotating beacon switch now needs to be on. Well, the beacon is down here. We'll turn that on. Good. And at this point, we are good to go. Before we go though, let me show you some more interesting stuff. This has a full maintenance and failure system built in. It's actually on the add-ons menu. Go to Flight 1 B200, go to settings. Now this aircraft has a full maintenance system and service-based failure system built in, just like the A2A and PNDG. First of all, we have a realism thing in here, so we can turn on and off various failures. So whether or not engine wear is a problem, flap damage, landing gear damage, hot starts, foreign object debris, and brake fade. The aircraft is actually notoriously hard on brakes, and that's modeled, which is very cool. So we have that. We have options in here. We can open the main exit, we can chuck the wheels, put the tie downs on. If you have a problem with performance on your PC, then you can turn off the co-pilot's PFD, which is helpful. But most important of all is this, maintenance and repairs. This will track the life of your aircraft, and you can change the amount that it wears down at the top here. Now I cleared my maintenance history actually on the last video, which is why there's not a lot of time on here, but anyway. You can change the rate of wear here from fast, medium, normal. If you want a lot of drama, set it to fast. We're actually going to set it today on normal. And if you're one of those virtual pilots that actually uses a logbook to track your flights and to track your performance, then this is very interesting at all. Indeed, look, if we go into fixed failures here, let's say I want to top off the engine oil. If I click on perform here, it will tell me how much it's going to cost. So $2 to perform that. Great, engine oil is all topped off. Let's say we want to do something more serious, like replace the brake pads. $12,000 that's going to cost you, which is crazy, but that's how much it really costs. Similarly, let's say we break an engine. So we're going to replace the left engine. That will be a phenomenal $120,000. You can track all that stuff if you want. It's very, very cool. We can fix engine fires if we had one. We can call a fuel truck out, reload the aircraft, and so on and so on. It is a really, really complex system. Really nice. I like this a great deal. It adds a whole amount of depth to flying the aircraft. You can track not only the hours you're spending in it, but how much it's costing you, which is phenomenal. There's that word. Okay, let's go back into our aircraft. So at this point, referring to Kurt's documentation, if we were in a normal aircraft like an Airbus, or a 737 or something like that, what we can actually do at this point is go ahead and key in our flight plan. We're not going to do that. Flight 1 do accurately model the wear and drain on the battery, and the battery only has enough charge really to make 3, maybe 4 unsuccessful attempts to start an engine. So if we're going to have a problem starting the engine today, we really want as much battery power as possible available. So what we're going to do is go through and start the engines up, then we are going to set our flight plan in. So we're going to set the flight plan in whilst the engines are actually running after we powered it up to make sure that we have enough power to get everything done. So here's how this works, and it's a little bit strange. Now I think I have a view set up for this. Not that one. That one. With that view there, I can see all the switches on the left, but also my condition levers, which I'm going to need, and also the engine dials here on the G1000. So what we do, there is a switch, 2 switches down here. Ignition and engine start. We will turn right ignition and engine start switch on. We will look for the right fuel pressure annunciator to go off when we do that. And then we're going to be looking for N1 here to increase. And once it hits 12%, then we will bring the condition lever to high idle actually. No, to low idle. And then we'll go to high idle after that. So here we go. Up it comes, looking for 12%. There it is, condition lever to low idle. Lights gone out. Now we're monitoring the ITT here, and we're monitoring N1. We don't want the ITT to go over 1000 degrees, that would be bad. Also looking at the right oil pressure, that's already gone green, so we're good to go there. Once we're happy that the engine is fairly stable, we'll move that right condition lever all the way up to high idle, and at that point we'll turn the right ignition and engine start switch off. With that done, the right generator, this one, we will switch that up to on, then reset, and back to on. That will start charging our battery. We can look up here. Looking at percentage load there. I think we're good on that battery now, so what we will do is we'll turn the right generator off at this point. Then we'll go left engine, ignition and engine start, and follow the same thing again. Look for 12%. Condition lever, low idle. Up comes that monstrous engine. Lights gone out. Monitor the ITTNN1 once again. Monitor the left engine oil pressure. It's already gone green. We're good there. We don't want this to go over 1,000 degrees. Now with that done, we will turn the right generator back on after resetting it. Once the engine is stabilized, we'll turn that left ignition switch off, left generator reset and then on, and then we'll reduce the right condition lever to low idle. So it's a little bit of a funky start flow, but you get used to it. Incidentally, there is a full set of documentation in the documentation for clearing the engine, so if you do have a problem starting it and you need to clear the engine out, then you can do so just fine. With all that done, let's turn the avionics on. That enables our radios and our navigation systems, and now we will go and mess with the G1000, which is an incredible piece of kit. So I have a view for that. Here's the G1000. You actually program it using this keypad down here. Now, if you have an Android device, there is a supplied Android app that you can install on your phone and use your Android app as the keypad. We're not going to do that. We're going to bring up the visual keypad like so. I'm going to walk you through, according to Kurt's tutorial, got to keep on calling that out, this is an awesome tutorial from Kurt, how to program in our flight plan. So the first thing we do is we click on FPL, here. That brings up the active flight plan display. Now this is where things get funky, and I'm still getting used to this with this aircraft. Every one of these knobs here that has two knobs in total, so there's an outer and an inner knob, has click spots around it. So up here, upper left, upper right is the outer knob, lower left, lower right is the inner knob, and you click outside the knob, which is somewhat non-standard, and this is where I was having problems on my live stream that provoked Flight 1 to call me out somewhat on their Facebook page. It's not very standard. It does take a little bit of getting used to. What we're going to do first of all is click on this knob to bring up the cursor, and then we will click the inner knob, which is the lower left and right position, to bring up the waypoint cursor entry, like so. First thing we want to enter is where we are. So we're at Sitka, which is Papa, Alpha, Sierra, India. There it is. Click on enter. That gets edited into the wayplan, which is great. Now we're going to do that once again and enter our next waypoint, which is BKA, or Bravo Kilo Alpha. So BKA, pretty simple. Enter, and you can see the two are linked now, and we're starting to get a flight plan drawn down here. Next waypoint is Yak, which is Yankee Alpha Kilo. Yankee Alpha Kilo. The next waypoint is Big, or Bravo India Golf. Now obviously there is a Big in England, which is Biggin Hill, so we're going to have a conflict here. There's Big. Click on enter. It says you have duplicates. One is in Alaska, one is in the United Kingdom, one is in Turkey. So you can scroll up and down now and choose the one you want. We want the one that's in Alaska because that's where we are. And our final waypoint, our destination, we're not actually going to make it to the destination. We're going to divert mid-flight to Juneau, is Pafa. So, once again, Papa, Alpha, Foxtrot, Alpha, enter. That is our waypoint done. We click on flight plan now, and it draws our waypoint right here. What we will now do though, this is a very cool feature of the G1000, we'll change the range of that display down to about 5,000 feet. Which gives us a handy map of the airport. So for taxiing around now, we can actually very clearly see everything and where we need to be. Having done all that, we will continue with the after starting and taxi checklist. We need to turn our lights on. The lights that we need, because it's daytime, are really just the recognition and taxi lights. If it was nighttime, we would also be using the tail and the floodlights. We don't need to worry about that today, because we are using sensible lighting in this video. So taxi, first person to spot it wins. There it is. And the recognition lights. They're all going to go on. Cabin temperature and mode is required and instruments checked. So for checking, what we're going to do is make sure here that we have everything set up properly. So we are currently heading on 23 degrees, or facing 23 degrees. We'll check the wet compass. That is also showing, yep, about 23 degrees, so we're good there. Barometric, we've not entered. Let's go ahead and tune 12200 on COM 1, and then we can listen to the weather forecast, current conditions, METAR report for here. So here's our click spot oddness once again. Going to click on the upper left and upper right to change the main number, and then lower left, lower right to change the other. Now depending on how you have your view set up, mine's a little off center there, so it's actually hard to find that click spot. Bear that in mind if you're using EasyDock, as I am. You know what, I might actually change that view. Let's go ahead and change that view a little bit. So I'm just going to go into EasyDock edit mode here, bear with me. That's a bit better. Okay, 122.
Papa Alpha Sierra India Airport information India 1553 Zulu weather wind 311 at 3 visibility 10 sky clear temperature 2 dew point -1 altimeter 2978 advice on initial contact you have information India Papa Alpha
okay, so
Sierra
2978 on the barometric. We've just set that in down here. Next we're going to set this display down here. The first thing we want to do is make sure that the CDI is set to the magenta GPS, which it currently is. You can see that magenta arrow right there. Great. What we'll do now is click on OBS or Omni Bearing Selector. Wonderful. And then we'll use the course knob on the auto flight to set a course of 170. What we're setting here is we're saying that we want to fly a course, we want to fly in on the 170 radial to BKA. That's why we're in OBS mode, and that's why we're now going to whiz up here to the auto flight panel and set in 170. I can actually pop this open at this point, which I'll do. Makes life a little bit easier. Bear with me. So let's bring that up. There it is. So we're going to set a course here at 170. Whoops. Missed it. Let's try that again. 170. There it is. That's the course we're going to fly to BKA. Now we're also going to set our altitude alerter to 5,000 feet. And again, notice I was changing thousands by clicking upper right or upper left there. I can change the hundreds by clicking on the lower left and right. So we're going to do that. 5,000 feet. Like so. Now it's going to be helpful down here, it says, to have the bearing 2 indicator showing as well. And to have that on GPS so that it also points to our waypoint. So what we want is this second arrow here, which is actually already showing, pointing to BKA, as opposed to the Omni Bearing Selector showing us the course that we need to be on. The way we do that is click on PFD, click on bearing 2. You can change bearing 2 there between nav2, GPS, ADF, and so on. I'm going to leave it on GPS, and we'll go back to the main display. With all that done, we can actually taxi at this point. There's still more stuff to set up. We still need to do our run-up checks and all that good stuff, but we'll do that as we get closer to runway. We're expecting to take runway 11 today, runway 11. So let's just go. Let's just taxi out towards runway 11. We'll do our run-up once we get closer to that point, and finish our checks at that point as well. Now, Flight 1 have done a very good job of fixing the ground friction bug in FSX with this aircraft. It requires next to no power to start moving. Bear that in mind. It requires very little power as well to really start going fast. So you need to be somewhat in control. The aircraft is very, very hard on its brake pads, so you should not ride the brakes during the taxi too much. Bring the power levers here back towards the beta range to slow down if you possibly can and minimize brake use. We're going to take about 400 pounds of torque right here to get moving. Then we're going to bring the power levers back to around about 250, and that should give us a nice rate of taxi. So off the brakes now. And as I gently increase those power levers, you can see the engine spooling up, torque's coming up. There is a lag. It is a turboprop. It is a significant amount of lag as well, which makes maneuvers like landing and approach a little bit tricky. Alright, so now we've got some movement. And gently feed in some left rudder here. You can see it's already picking up a lot of speed. So we're going to come off the power levers now, back towards the beta range. As we taxi out towards runway 11. You can see how handy that map is down there on the G1000. And just like in a big jet, you have a ground speed readout on the primary flight display. You can see it down there, currently doing 7 knots. Aircraft is pretty frisky on the ground. Now I don't know where the specific run-up area here at Sitka is, so we're actually going to taxi to the holding point and we'll do our run-ups and our final setup of this aircraft right there, which is not terribly realistic. But that's not really the point. It's really to show you the aircraft and to show you the procedures involved. Alright, so bringing the power levers back now towards the beta range. Aircraft is very slowly starting to slow. Down to 9 knots now. 8 knots. 7. Let's use the brakes gently here. Bring the aircraft to a stop. And we will put the parking brake on. And I'll actually turn some lights on because of the lighting here at Sitka today is a bit off. It's going to be hard to see stuff. So lights are all up here. Let's just turn everything on for you. Much, much clearer. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is set our heading. So we're going to have runway heading initially, which is 110. Sorry, 110. So again, using these weird click spots, let's pop this open so it's easier to see. In fact, that's a very big window. Maybe we can make this a bit smaller. There we are. Bit too far there. There's my click spot dilemmas once again. Now I keep belaboring how tricky it is to get familiar with these click spots. I can see why they did it. I can see that once you get intimately familiar with it after about 40 or so hours in the aircraft, that's a really nice touch. Just be aware it has a bit of a learning curve. Okay, we're going to do a functional check first of all. So what we do for this is we set our bleed air valves. You can see we've got bleed air warnings here. We'll set our bleed air valves on. That would be these two. So bleed air valves now are both open. Our lights have gone out. We'll do our cabin pressure check down here. Let's move that armrest. The way we do this is we're going to adjust so that the cabin altitude dial indicates an altitude 500 feet below pressure altitude. So let's dial this down there. Make sure the rate selector knob is between the 9 and 12 positions, which it is. And then we're going to hold the pressurization switch at test. With that done, we'll scroll up here. Make sure this needle is moving, which it is. So let's pop this out of test now. And we will set our pressurization. We're going to be cruising today at an altitude of about 22,000 feet. So we're going to set an altitude now of 22,500. We do that with using the inner scale. So there's 21, there's 22, there's 22,500. And with that done, we'll set the rate selector knob at the 12 o'clock position, and we're good to go. Now we'll go ahead and check the autopilot. The way we check the autopilot is we basically turn it on, and then we'll disable the yaw damper. So we'll turn this on first of all. Let's bring up that display because we need to check some enunciations here. So autopilot on, you can see roll, autopilot yaw damper, and pit is all turned on. We'll turn the yaw damper off at this point. You should hear the alert. Now the flight director has remained on. We need to put the flight director in go around mode, which is going to give us a visual indication of 8 degrees of pitch. The way we do that is click on the go around, take off go around button on the side of the power lever there. Now we have 8 degrees of pitch. Next we're going to set our flaps for approach. Let's just double check that. That is the approach position, I think. Yes it is. So approach flaps are good. And now we will do our overspeed governors and rudder boost test. This is actually quite tricky to do. We're going to push both prop levers full forward and then individually test the engines and make sure that everything is working with the yaw damper. So, actually before I do that, I think I need to turn the rudder boost on. I do. So there's the rudder boost. Prop levers are both full forward. So we will now increase one of the power levers to stabilize at 1830 to 1910 RPM. This is actually very tricky. There's RPM. It's tricky because of the lag from the engines. So let's do the left engine first. Before we do that, we'll hold this prop governor test switch to test, by the way, like so. So let's increase that left engine, engine number 1. Trying to bring RPM up to 1830. Very hard to get that precisely where you want because of the engine lag. Okay, that looks good. Now we're going to look down, and as we increase, we should see rudder movement. There it is. Alright, let's bring this back down to beginning of its beta range. And we'll do the same thing now with engine 2. A little bit too much there on the power. I went up to 1910 already. Bringing back the power lever now to get us more closer to 1830. A little bit not enough. A little bit not enough. That's not even English. As you can see, a little bit tricky to manage this. That'll do. So let's look down and increase the power now. We're looking for rudder movement. There it is. Okay, let's bring these back down to idle. Like so. With that done, we'll switch the test prop governor test switch out of test back to normal. Now we're going to do the instrument vacuum and de-ice pressure. What we do is we're going to check this at 1800 RPM again. So both engines now up to 1800 RPM. That will pretty much do, and what we'll do is we'll turn the bleed air valves now off. So here's our bleed air valves, we'll turn those both off. We have bleed air warnings come up, and we're looking for the suction. Sorry, pneumatic pressure gauge. Actually, they're not off. That was my mistake. I was wondering why that gauge wasn't indicating 0. It's supposed to indicate 0 because this is a 3-position switch. There we go. Okay, pneumatic pressure is now down to 0. My apologies. And now we'll open the bleed air valves once again, and we should see that come back up. And we do. And our bleed air fail lights should now be out. Clear the caution. They are out. So we can bring the engines back down now to idle. Next up, we'll do an auto feather check. The way we do that is we're going to advance the power levers to approximately 500 pounds of torque. Now remember, this is torque, not RPM. So let me get a little bit closer down here so we can see this. Looking for 500 pounds of torque. A little bit high on the left engine. Behind the right engine now, bringing them both back a touch. That'll be good for our test. Now what we do is we hold the auto feather switch into the test position. Auto feather here, we'll put that in test. You can see we've got 2 auto feather lights. Now individually we will retard the power levers looking for the opposite light to go out. So we'll pull back the left one now. At about 400 pounds of torque, we're just dropping beneath 500 now on that left one. A glitch there from my power lever. You'll see the opposite one go out. There it goes. Let's do the right engine. Good, that went out. So back down to idle. Now we can turn out of test on auto feather and put that into the arm position. We've done all that. Let's double check our fuel. We're still pretty much full on the fuel. We'll double check our engine instruments now. So altitude is good, heading of 203. Wet compass is still showing about the same thing. Everything is looking good. We are good to go. That will be the end of this video. In the next video, we'll actually do the takeoff, which is kind of tricky because we're going to take off and then we're going to use the OBS to track that radial into BKA before actually engaging nav mode and then flying our route. Once we get along route, then we're going to handle the diversion that's in Kurt's tutorial from our normal route out to Puffer down to Juno. Papa Alpha, June, Juliet, November. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please tune in for the next video and let me know in the comments below what you think. Is this as complex as it looks? I'm finding it to be a very complex aircraft indeed. Thanks for watching, guys. See you soon.